Good afternoon. Just a couple of forward planning notes. Obviously, as you know, Monday is Labor Day. It's an official holiday in these United States, which we will take full advantage of. However, if you need anything, you can always reach us via various electronic means. On Tuesday, we will have a guest from Kabul. We expect to have Alison Davidian, the Deputy Country Representative for UN Women. She will join us to give you an impression of what is going on the ground. And in exactly a week, on the 10th of September at 12:30, the Secretary General of these United Nations, Antonio Guterres, will be here to give his traditional pre-GA press conference. It's a bit earlier than usual, but this will be after he speaks at the General Assembly on his Common Agenda report, which will be published that day. We also expect to have a background briefing for you on the Common Agenda at some point midweek next week. Moving on to actual news, starting off with Afghanistan, I can tell you that the Secretary General is indeed very grateful for the generosity of member states, including Denmark, Kazakhstan, North Macedonia, Pakistan, Poland, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and the United States, who have made available facilities and arrangements in support of continuing UN operations in Afghanistan. With their offers of commitments, they have made great contributions to the safety, security, operational delivery, and overall continuity of UN activities. And our humanitarian colleagues on the ground warned that Afghanistan is facing a food insecurity and malnutrition crisis. A third of the population, more than 12 million people, are acutely food insecure, and their situation is expected to be greatly worsened by the drought, which has impacted a third of the country. Our humanitarian colleagues note that as economic crisis looms, job opportunities also remain limited across the country, adding that the 2021 harvest in Afghanistan is expected to be below average, and the next lean season is expected to be more intense and arrive earlier. There's also a need to address water scarcity to prevent displacement and reduce hunger. At the beginning of 2021, 9 million people were already in need of water, sanitation, and hygiene assistance in Afghanistan. Along with our humanitarian partners, we have been working to respond to the impact of low rainfall on water availability, crop yields, agricultural labor opportunities, as well as affordability of food since the beginning of the year. In the first 6 months of the year, we have provided food, livelihoods, assistance to more than 5.5 million people, many of whom are in drought-impacted areas, but much more is needed. In certain parts of the country, the full impact of the drought is yet to be felt. In the last few years, many farmers in Afghanistan have been unable to access their fields due to conflict at critical times for planting and harvesting. Afghanistan's 2021 humanitarian response plan, which requires $1.3 billion to help more than 18 million people, is 40% funded, leaving a deficit of $766 million. For its part, the UN Refugee Agency today said that it was seeing no large influx of refugees trying to access the border to Pakistan and Iran. However, UNHCR said a displacement crisis is, in fact, taking place inside Afghanistan. And they warned that without entry of trade and support, this could lead to a major crisis, and that the international community should not turn a blind eye to Afghanistan and the Afghan people. Our colleagues at the UN mission in Libya today have been expressing their grave concern about the ongoing armed clashes, including the alleged use of indirect fire in Salaheddine, a densely populated area in the capital, Tripoli. The mission calls for the immediate cessation of hostilities and calls on all parties to exercise maximum restraint and remind all parties to this conflict of their obligations under international humanitarian law to support the protection of civilian infrastructure. And a trip announcement concerning the head of our peace operations, Jean-Pierre Lacroix. He will be traveling to Ethiopia and Sudan. He will be there starting this Monday until September 9th. And he'll be accompanied by the Special Envoy for the Horn of Africa, Parfait Onanga Nyanga. In Addis Ababa, they will meet with senior Ethiopian government officials as well as African Union officials to discuss peacekeeping issues, and in particular, the UN interim force in Abyei. which is better known as UNISFA. On Tuesday, the two UN officials will travel to Khartoum in Sudan to discuss issues related to the UN peacekeeping mission in Abyei. While in Khartoum, they will meet with senior Sudanese officials as well as the co-chairs of the Abyei Oversight Committee. They will then visit Abyei, where they will engage with local leaders as well as mission staff, and they will thank them for their contributions to peacekeeping. Following that trip, Mr. Lacroix will go to South Sudan, where he will be from the 9th until the 12th of September. We'll provide details on that trip a bit later. Turning to Sudan, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that over 88,000 people in 13 of the 18 states have been directly impacted by floods since the rainy season started in July. Humanitarian partners are conducting needs assessments and verification of people affected and have started to deliver life-saving humanitarian assistance. They're also using prepositioned supplies in Gedaref, West Darfur, South Darfur, and North Kordofan state. As of Wednesday, that's 2 days ago, about 4,800 homes were destroyed. Another 12,780 homes were damaged, and public infrastructure facilities and farmlands have been impacted. Heavy rains are expected to intensify across most of the country this week, driving more flooding, particularly in eastern, central, and western regions. And turning to Haiti, UNICEF there warns that about 540,000 children in the area impacted by last month's earthquake are now facing the possibility of reemergence of waterborne diseases. The lack of access to shelter, drinking water, and hygiene facilities are rapidly increasing, with the threat of acute respiratory infections, diarrhea, disease, malaria, and cholera. As we have mentioned in the past, there hasn't been any single case of cholera reported in Haiti since February 2019. UNICEF is working with Haitian authorities and civil society partners to improve access to water, sanitation, with the aim of reaching 500,000 people. UNICEF said several distribution centers have to be put on temporary hold because of tensions on the ground. They're calling on local authorities to ensure safe conditions for humanitarian organizations to operate and scale up relief assistance to earthquake-affected communities. The World Meteorological Organization today published its first air quality and climate bulletin, which highlights the factors that influence air quality patterns last year in comparison to other years. The bulletin shows how COVID-19 lockdown and travel restrictions led to a dramatic, short-lived fall in emissions of key pollutants, especially in urban areas. However, meteorological extremes fueled by climate and environmental change triggered unprecedented sand and dust storms, as well as wildfires that affected air quality, and this trend is continuing this year. The full report is online. And I think that's it. Edie.
Thank you very much, Steph. At the beginning, you read out a list of countries that the United Nations was thanking for their assistance. Is it possible to get details on what each of those countries has offered to the United Nations and will be providing?
Yeah, we'll try to give you some more details.
Okay, my second question is that there was a second demonstration in Kabul today by a small group of women's rights activists who were demanding access to education, the right to return to work, and a role in government in the country. Does the Secretary General support these protests, and what would he be telling the Taliban government in relation to women?
Sure. First of all, as we've stated many times, it is very important that everyone everywhere has a right to demonstrate peacefully. I think, as we've said a number of times, we are concerned about the issues of human rights in Afghanistan, notably on the rights of women. It is imperative that women have the right to work in a safe environment. And those are some of the issues that have been brought to the attention of our interlocutors in Kabul and elsewhere. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Steph. On 31st of August, the Houthis attacked civilian sites on Abha airport in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. About 8 civilians was injured in this incident. Any comment from the United Nations on these repeated violations of Security Council resolutions by Houthis?
You know, we have and will continue to condemn attacks on civilian infrastructure as the one that you have just mentioned. International law is very clear that civilian infrastructure should never be targeted. We're also concerned about the renewed fighting and casualties we're seeing around Marib. And I think it is very important for all parties involved to renew their commitment to a political process. Philippe? And then Maggie.
Thank you, Stephane. In fact, I had the same question, Eddie, at the beginning. When you talk about facilities and arrangement for the help of this aid country, what does it mean? Is it mean money? Can you give us a global amount if you have?
Some of it is facilities.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a varied. I will try to give you a bit more details. Maggie?
Steph, on Mr. Lacroix's trip to Ethiopia, are they going to be discussing replacing the departing Ethiopian troops from UNSMIL? And has the UN had any offers of replacement troops yet? And can you tell us a date when they're leaving?
No, in reverse order. No, I'm not. Let me answer it more clearly. Sorry, trying to remember what you asked. You know, there've been ongoing discussions about the future format of UNSMIL in all its aspects, which is part of a strategic review, which has been requested by the Security Council, for which we will submit to the Security Council. I think part of that of Mr. Lacroix's trip can be seen within the context of that strategic review. As far as your other peacekeepers, other nations coming forward, I have no comment on that at this time.
And can I ask a second question on Haiti?
You may.
Thank you. So on the cholera, what is the UN doing to prevent it? Is there any sort of, preventative or mitigation efforts you can do so that there's not another situation?
Well, a lot of it has to do with ensuring that people have access to clean drinking water, and we've been working with the Haitian government for quite some time on strengthening the public health system, including strengthening people's access to clean water. But as you said, the issue of waterborne diseases is one that needs to be tackled quickly, and that's one we're working on with our Haitian partners. Okay, any other questions on this Friday on eve of a 3-day weekend? Excellent. Thank you all. See you Tuesday.